What's up, YouTube? Back at you with another video. So basically, I'm gonna just get right into it. So I got an article courtesy of Boxing News 24, which says Errol Spence activates rematch clause to fight Terence Crawford again. The article goes on to say that trainer Brian Bomac McIntyre has confirmed that Errol Spence Jr. has activated his rematch clause to fight Terence Crawford in a move that ties Omaha, Nebraska natives' hands for the remainder of the year. It says, Bomac says he's not sure when the Crawford-Spence rematch will occur, but he's hoping it'll be before the end of the year. If it's dragged into the first quarter of 2024, it will limit Crawford's options for a big fight. Bomac will need to get off his high horse and humble himself if Crawford loses the rematch with Spence. Crawford had been talking about wanting to fight the Canelo Alvarez versus Jermell Charlo winner next, but that's not happening now that the former unified welterweight champion, Spence, has exercised his rematch clause. So my thoughts about Errol activating the rematch clause is not that different from my thoughts in the quick take video that I gave after the fight happened, after he lost. Now, my thing is this. I was one of the fans that was rooting for Errol Spence to win. So much so that I started talking trash about Terence Crawford. That's how bad I wanted Errol to win. And Errol lost unanimously. Some people think that if the fight happens at 154, that Errol will have a better shot because of the extra weight. Me, I feel that Errol should rematch Terence Crawford. Now, whether he fights him at 147 or 154, from what I heard, according to the contract, that's up to Terence Crawford. I think Errol really needs to go back to the drawing board. I don't think added weight is going to really make a difference in the fight alone. I think Errol really needs to do something different. And that's what I said before, and I'm going to say it again now. I said Terence Crawford apparently has 3 different trainers, maybe even 5 or some shit. But all right, let's say Terence Crawford has 3 different trainers. All Errol really relies on is Derek James for the most part. You know, we know he hired a new strength and conditioning coach. And so from that standpoint, let's say he has, two different people that he works with. And I said before, Errol needs to get Kenny Porter in his camp. He needs to do something completely different. He has to do something that he's never done before. Also, if I was Errol, 147 was Errol Spence's weight division. He was there before Terence Crawford even moved up. And in my opinion, I feel like if Errol were to get the rematch at 154, then the narrative is going to be that Terence Crawford ran him out of his own division. Errol has been talking about being undisputed at 147 since the very beginning of his career. So the fact that Terence Crawford was ultimately the one that prevented that in such a bad loss in his own weight division, I feel like Errol should really run it back and fight Terence Crawford at 147. Again, that's me. That's what I would do if I was Errol Spence. One last time, I will pull off all the stops. Another thing, I've watched damn near every single interview that his old or his former strength and conditioning coach, Blu-ray, I watched every single interview that he's done talking about Spence Crawford. And based on what he said, because he kind of floats, he's floats in the same circles as Errol, he said that he heard that there were a few things that went wrong during Errol's training camp that contributed to such a bad loss against Terence Crawford. Now, I don't know what it is, and he didn't specify what those things were, but I also feel that Errol really needs to get back with Blu-ray. All right? According to Blu-ray, Errol's dad reached out to him to work with him for the Danny Garcia fight. For whatever reason, that shit didn't happen. When the Pacquiao fight came around, he started working with Blu-ray again. The fight got canceled. He fought Ugas next. He didn't work with Blu-ray. Now, again, Blu-ray said that when he was training Errol, they went 11 fights, 11 knockouts. When he stopped training with Errol, you started to see Errol going the distance. And I don't want to say struggling, because up until Crawford, his wins were pretty decisive, for the most part. But it wasn't the same Errol Spence. So I think Errol needs to bring Blu-ray back in. I feel like Errol should also, again, I'm just throwing this shit out there, but I think Errol should also bring in somebody like Kenny Porter. The reason why is because Kenny Porter also has experience with going up against Crawford. And according to Kenny Porter, he said the reason why Sean Porter lost was because he didn't do what I needed him to do in training camp and in the ring. So if I was Errol, I would approach Kenny and I would say, Kenny, listen, I am willing to do everything you said that Sean Porter didn't do if you would help me train for this fight. Help me prepare for this fight. In fact, maybe even be in his corner, because Errol needs it. Errol needs it. Strength and, body shots and kind of, betting on being the stronger man is not going to win Errol this next fight, because I'm rooting for him. I always knew that it was a 50-50 fight, but I'm more invested. I've always been invested in the story of Errol Spence more so than Terence Crawford. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that Terence Crawford won that fight, he's been going on a victory lap, a victory tour, doing mad press, mad interviews and all that shit. And I'm watching these interviews and I'm like, yo, that's supposed to be Errol, not him. Much respect to Crawford. He won. He deserves it. That's fine. He was the better man. But Errol really has to go back to the drawing board and what made him champion in the first place when he won his IBF belt against Kell Brook back in 2017. That's what he needs to do. Don't do as much press anymore. In fact, Errol, he shouldn't even be doing any press. No more talking. Errol Spence should go straight Clubber Lang for Rocky 3. If press is all in the locker rooms or some shit, tell the motherfuckers to get out. That's what I think Errol should do. Errol really needs to lock in. He needs to pull out all the stops, because if Derrick James cannot provide the proper strategy, then somebody else has to. Someone else has to do that. Like, even though Sean Porter lost, but, when Sean Porter fought Errol Spence, if I'm not mistaken, Barry Hunter, helped train him for that fight. And Sean Porter left everything in the ring. If it wasn't for that knockdown, that fight would have been a draw. So we can't take that much from Sean Porter, knowing that if it wasn't for the knockdown, he could have edged it out, or it would have been a draw, because he did everything that he was supposed to do. And Errol, I'm fine with Errol losing the rematch if it happens, as long as we get the Hagler-Hearns fight that we were promised. Because that's what I said before. I said Errol deserves a better match, not only for himself, but for the fans as well. That's what Errol Spence really needs to do. I know they're like motivation for him and all of that, but his daughters, keep him out of the camp. They can't come. His girlfriend, she got to stay at home. All hands on deck. His father, sure, because his dad, I know his dad helps him with that shit. What is his name? Jordan? Cool. But, the wife and kids? No. Eliminate all distractions. Do something new. It's like when Michael Jordan couldn't get past the Detroit Pistons the first 2 times. So what did he do in order to win the championship? He had to do something different. And I know making 147 is hard. If the fight happens on 154, fine. But as long as we get the fight that we were promised. Because everybody, including Terence Crawford, Bomac, and his people, they thought that they were going to get a tougher fight, and they didn't. Shit, he made it easier for them for whatever reason. I don't know what it was. But it's like every I needs to be dotted. Every T needs to be crossed. Every mistake that they made in the first camp, don't repeat it. If I was Errol, I'm not going back. I'm not doing any promotion. I'm going to let Terence Crawford do that shit. People are going to be like, oh shit. Errol Spence is locked in. That's like when Charlo lost to fucking Tony Harrison the first time. He wasn't saying that much the second time. He wasn't. I mean, yeah, he might have been, talking a little bit of trash, but for the most part, he was locked in. And what happened? He came in there and he stopped Tony Harrison and he got his belts back. There's nothing wrong with losing, But as long as you lose knowing you gave everything, you could. Because it's like, all right, because in my opinion, Errol Spence was supposed to become undisputed, vacate his belts, and then move up to 154. Now, it's like after that fight, now you got people like Tim Tszyu calling out Errol Spence, knowing damn well this time last year he would not be calling out Errol Spence. It's because he feels like, oh, okay, if Terence Crawford could beat Errol, then maybe I could beat him. But Tim Tszyu wasn't calling out Errol before. And Errol's been talking about moving up to 154 for a long ass time. So, and then if he loses the rematch, I just feel like he'll have my respect for sure, but the narrative won't be what I would want it to be, for him, And again, all respect to Terence Crawford. He has the edge. I mean, shit, he was the betting favorite the first fight. So now it's going to be even more so. So Errol has to show us something that we haven't shown before. He has to really dig deep this time. No cameras, no nothing. If I was him, I'm staying off the internet. People are going to be like, damn, Errol's so quiet. Shit. And then the people close to him say Errol is locked in. Bring Blu-ray in. Get a second and a third trainer in for strength and conditioning, which is Blu-ray, and another guy for strategy. Another guy purely for strategy that will work in congruence with Derrick James or some shit. Because I said it in my other two videos, or my other video, and I'll say it again. I feel like Errol, their game plan was based on what they do best and not really on Terence Crawford. That's why they didn't have an answer for him. That's why Terence Crawford really had to do very simple things. It wasn't even like he had to do all of that, because if you watch a lot of the film studies, his approach to beating Errol Spence was very simple. He took his jab away. That was basically it. And then Errol tried to muscle his way in on the inside and tried to force it after the first and second knockdown. And then he couldn't really do anything after that, because Terence Crawford not only had the positional advantage, because he just the way that he fights, it's like he was always in a good position. And then two, Terence Crawford is strong too. So he needs to get that strength back. You need to get that shit back from, Blu-ray. Get back with Blu-ray. I don't know what happened between those two, and according to Blu-ray, nothing happened. But with Errol, you need him. Right now, for this fight, you might not have needed him for Porter, Danny Garcia, and freaking Ugas, but you need him now. You need him now. You definitely need him now. And it's something that I was watching a Tim Grover interview, and he said how there was a basketball player, I don't know who he was, but basically how there was a basketball player in the NBA who I guess he worked with, and he said how he used to like maybe drink like alcohol, like a couple of drinks of alcohol before the games or some shit like that, and he was always successful. And then he told Tim Grover, he says, oh, I'm not gonna drink anymore because I'm just turning a new leaf. And Tim Grover said, no, you have to keep doing what made you successful, because if you try to do something different and reinvent the wheel, don't be surprised when you get a different result than what you were getting when you were successful. So when Errol Spence, stopped doing certain things like, working with Blu-ray, like getting a haircut. That was another thing too. I said, Errol needs to cut his hair. That is not his look. If you look at all of Errol Spence's previous fights, he's always had the dark fade, the low taper fade. That's what he's always had. And for some freaking reason, this fight, he grew out the nappy afro. Shit wasn't even combed. Mad disheveled. All the tattoos. And I said, like me, I wouldn't even have gotten tatted up until after I was undisputed. Then I'll move up to 154. Then I'll switch it up. Then I'll get the new look. But I'm not going to reinvent the wheel until I finish the job, until I accomplish my goals, until I complete the quest. You know what I'm saying? So, Errol, at the end of the day, like I said, Errol is one of my favorite fighters, and I'm always going to root for him. And I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't truly believe that he could do it. I truly believe Errol Spence can beat Terence Crawford if he truly applies himself. Eat, sleep, shit, sleep Terence Crawford. I'm talking about watching every Terence Crawford fight. I would watch the fight with him over and over and over and over again to the littlest detail. So when I get in there with him again, even if I don't beat him, that man will say, yo, he gave me the fight that I expected the first time. He will say, this is not the same guy that I fought the first time. This was the Errol Spence that I wanted to fight. This was the Errol Spence that I had been calling out since I moved up to 147. Errol Spence owes it to himself. He owes it to Terence Crawford. He owes it to the fans and everybody in his inner circle that has supported him. You didn't come all this way to fucking, lose like that. Because Errol Spence is not going to move up to 160. 154 is it. And if Terence Crawford moves up to 154 too, which he most likely will, if he doesn't, because if let's say Charlo wins the fight with Canelo, Charlo is going to fight Crawford next, especially if Crawford beats Errol Spence. And then if Crawford beats Charlo, then Crawford is the guy at 154. Shit, at that point, Crawford can retire. Because at that point, he's going to be, 37 going on 38 or some shit like that. So Crawford is already on his way out. That means he would be undisputed in 3 different weight classes. There's really nothing to do at that point unless you want to move up to 160. And who's up there? Ammo Williams? no one's up at 160, and Jamal is moving up to 168. So in order to prevent that, and I'm not being a hater, but I'm just saying, in order to prevent Terence Crawford from robbing the bank and getting off scot-free, you gotta stop him. You got to stop him. So, in conclusion, if I was Errol, before I move up to 154, I would say, you know what? 147 is my weight division. This is where I started. And this is exactly where I said I wanted to be undisputed. I will not allow Terence Crawford to get in the way of my dream. I will not allow him to take it away from me. All right? So I would stay at 147. I would take the fight. Get back with Blu-ray. Start training with him. Everything that Blu-ray said that he really wanted to do with Errol that he wasn't able to do, we're going to do it. We are going to do it. So if we're going to work out with weights, calisthenics, whatever it is, we are going to do it. Get a secondary coach. Whoever that is. Jermell Charlo has Derek James, and then he also has Juan Guzman. Get somebody secondary. So whenever Derek James is working with Anthony Joshua, Ryan Garcia, Frank Martin, all these other guys and shit that he's got in his camp now, you have somebody else that you are working with still. So then now that's 3 people that you got. Then come up with the game plan of all game plans, because I know Terence Crawford is going to show up ready. Terence Crawford is probably going to come in there as if he didn't beat Errol at all. And what he's really going to do is, Errol's in a coffin right now. So the rematch, if Terence Crawford has his way, this will be the nail in the coffin. So Errol has to have adjustments on top of adjustments on top of adjustments. You can go back to my podcast episode, and I said whoever's going to win this fight is going to be the one who has the most adjustments. And Errol only had 2. What he always does, he got knocked down. Let me try to force it. That didn't work. He didn't have an answer to it. And that's why we saw the fight go the way that it did. So he needs to rely on strategy before strength. Strategy before strength. They say skills pay the bills. So we want to see, this shit has to be the culmination of every single fight that Errol has ever fought. So I want to see flashes of the Sean Porter fight. I want to see flashes of the Kell Brook fight. I want to see flashes of Ugas, Danny Garcia, Leonard Mundu, Chris Van Heerden, everything. Errol Spence needs to come in there Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 4, Super Saiyan Blue. Shit, he might even have to go Ultra Instinct. That's how prepared this man has to be for this fight. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I know Terence Crawford is going to turn it up. He's going to turn it up. So whatever he did the first time, he's going to capitalize on that. He's going to build upon that. And Bomac got a chip on his shoulder. So I know these niggas are going to be ready. So if I know they're going to be ready, I'm going to show up prepared. Something Kenny Porter says, you have to do everything right. You have to get everything right. You have to do everything you're supposed to do. So Errol has to do that. I truly believe Errol has the potential to win. And if nothing else, people will respect the fact that he gave us the fight that we deserve, that he deserves, that Terence Crawford deserves, that we all deserve. But those are my thoughts. So I know if it's August now and they're saying that, then basically really by, I would say, the end of I would say the beginning of October. So middle of October is when we're gonna start to get, you know, the press conferences, the interviews, and the fight is they're gonna start to build up the fight again. You know, most likely, if anything, the very end of October, you know, is when we're really gonna start to see, you know, a lot of the press and stuff like that, because Charlo and Canelo, they're gonna be fighting, so Showtime is gonna be focused on those two. So I don't see them really talking about Errol, you know, for a while now. So Errol needs to be in camp. He has to have a pre-camp right now. He needs to have a pre-camp right now. And then everybody that said Errol should retire, Stephen A. Smith and all these other guys or whatever, I would train so hard that these motherfuckers are gonna have to put their foot in their mouth for saying that type of shit, in my opinion, you know, because again, I still think that Errol is the man. I have respect for Crawford, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, this time I'm just taking my emotions, you know, out of it, and I'm just gonna look at it, you know, completely objective. Although again, I'm still rooting for Errol, just minus all the trash talk towards Terence Crawford. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.
Good luck.